Well, I'm Ken Biberai, and welcome to Coffee with Ken, a thought leadership series of the nexus of business, politics, and canines. We are in Boyds, Maryland today with the Warrior Canine Connection and their founder and executive director, Rick Yount. Pleasure to see you, Rick. How are you?
I'm doing great, Ken. Welcome and great to be here.
And who do we got here?
This is Cooper.
Hey, Cooper, how are you?
Our golden retriever, our
Amazing.
ambassador dog.
Ambassador dog. Well, perfect. Well, look, we've been looking forward to having this conversation. We are in this amazing facility, this retrofitted barn. Tell us about it. Where are we? How did you get this amazing facility?
Well, we're here in Boyds, Maryland on a former dairy farm. This is Maryland parkland that we're sitting on. So we have a long-term relationship with the Department of Natural Resources in the state of Maryland. And this barn was built in 1938, and it was a very large dairy operation. And this barn helped provide milk for the troops in the D.C. area during World War II. And we're now using it to help nourish the troops in a different way.
Wow, that's amazing. And you have deep ties here in Maryland, right? I mean, the governor's own dog, I think, was a namesake from here. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs for the state has been here regularly. Good ties to Maryland?
Yeah, the state's been just tremendously supportive of our mission and what we do. We're very grateful.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, give us a little bit of the origin story. How did even the idea come to you to create this organization?
Well, I have to take you back to 1995 when I was working with children in the foster care system in West Virginia as a case manager, social worker. And I was gifted a golden retriever puppy by two good friends of mine who thought I needed a puppy without telling me that I needed a puppy. I did need a puppy. And I have to say that I never met a more manipulative being than a golden retriever puppy. And I was completely bamboozled into believing him when he was looking me in the eye when I was trying to leave for the day. And he convinced me that he was going to die if I didn't take him. And that morning I took him. I had received a call from Child Protective Services. We had to go remove a 9-year-old boy from the very bad situation and didn't have time to take the puppy back home. So he was along for the ride. And that morning, I discovered personally and witnessed the incredible power of a golden retriever puppy with a young man who couldn't be consoled any other way by people.
Interesting.
But this sobbing young man who was in the back of my car as we were taking him to live with a family he'd never met in a county he'd never been to, the sobbing just immediately kind of stopped. And I looked in my mirror and I saw this then 4-month-old golden retriever pup with his head in his lap. And that was my discovery of how powerful and helpful this could be.
And because your focus at the time was more social services and that. So how did that launch you into a path where you could actually have a force multiplier effect around golden retrievers and canines and this connection?
Yeah, as time went on, I discovered a program where they were training incarcerated teens to train service dogs for people in the community with disabilities. And what they were talking about, a self-esteem that the kids would develop from that. But what I saw was a very unique experiential way of teaching parenting skills to kids that hadn't experienced the most appropriate models growing up. The consistency and the emotional regulation, the bond that you have to have, and then the use of positive reinforcement and praise that goes into training a service dog certainly fit the mold for effective parenting in my mind. So that's what inspired me to go to school to become a service dog trainer, and started the program in Morgantown, West Virginia, working with kids that were at high risk in alternative high school and hoping to teach them parenting skills. And they helped train the dogs, and several of those dogs ended up being placed with veterans.
Wow. So you sort of naturally seen this kind of
flowing and evolving along the way. I'd like to say this was all planned out.
But look, most things in life aren't, right? Like sometimes it's you got to test and try and get to the next thing.
Yeah, and pay attention and see where it goes. But eventually, in 2005, with the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and post-traumatic stress being talked about so much, I had this idea where veterans who were experiencing the traumas from war, post-traumatic stress, I would teach them how to train service dogs and use that training process as a way of mitigating their symptoms of PTSD. And I wrote this up as my master's project, and was introduced to the service director for rec therapy at the Palo Alto VA. I was living out in California, huge VA system, and she liked the idea and was invited me to speak to her 60 or so rec therapists, and I did. And finally got some seed funding, and in July 2008 was invited to bring this idea to the inpatient PTSD program at the Menlo Park division of the Palo Alto VA.
And had they done stuff like that in the past? I mean, was the VA had not really
No.
leveraged this idea of canines and emotional support and any of that?
No, this was
pioneered
this was
this kind of
absolutely new, and thank God there was this division chief of rec therapy who had a good ear and open mind, and her boss, the director of the VA, was willing to take a risk because nobody had ever done this before. You're bringing dogs into a hospital with vets who are in 90-day program for PTSD. No, it had never been done before, and so it was on me to either
validate
make it or break it.
Wow. And then how did that go? So early stages through that process, validation.
It was, Ken, it was really wild. So of the 35 or so veterans, some active duty, some Vietnam, some young
The whole spectrum.
22-year-olds, from a lot of Camp Pendleton Marines. And my first three participants were three active duty Marines from Camp Pendleton. One was a drill instructor, and I had 4 dogs with me. Gabe, that puppy that I received as a gift
From 95.
So he was still going, and I had 3 of his grandsons. Wow. And so my job was to teach these Marines how to help train these dogs. And I was really wanting to focus on the mission, not to represent this as a therapy. Sure. Because I didn't want to give that away. Yeah. And I had to explain to these 3 Marines that, to train this dog effectively, we're going to use treats. And we have to teach these dogs to want to do these things, because the dog might end up with a veteran who's in a, doesn't have use of their arms or legs, in a manual or power wheelchair. So we have to do this in a way that's systematic and is a process to shape these behaviors. So you're going to have to learn to be very effective in communicating with the dog, which means you're going to have to, you can't be passive in your communication. You can't say, please, would you do it down? And you can't be aggressive either, because these are very soft, especially purpose-bred Goldens. They're marshmallows. So you're going to have to practice an assertive tone. And I described it as an Arnold Schwarzenegger. So you're down, right? And then when the dog does that behavior, you have to mark it. We use the word yes. And we have to reinforce it. So when you say yes to mark the behavior, to reinforce it, you don't want to sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You have to channel your inner Richard Simmons. These are 3 hospitalized Marines because of the severity of the symptoms. And one's a drill instructor. And then I modeled it. This is a guy, I grew up in Pittsburgh. This was not an easy voice for me to get. Down. Yes, what a boy. And the Marines, then all of a sudden, because I'm trying to sound like Sam Elliott up to this, because I'm like, these heroes. And when I did the Richard Simmons and the drill instructor, Rick, did they tell you we have PTSD? Or emotionally, no, we don't sound like that. And I kind of expected that. Yeah. I said, look, I'm not saying you have to be happy. Yeah. But I'm telling you here, with no smoke, to train this dog effectively to help, a fellow vet or a fellow Marine, because I know Marines, all service members will crawl through broken glass and fire to take care of their own. Yeah. So again, focused on the outcome. Mission. I said, you don't have to be happy. No. So you're going to have to pretend to sound happy to make this work. And it took some coaching. Yeah. Because, down, yes, good boy. I was like, good timing, right word. But the dog just experienced what you do at the airport when you're in uniform and a civilian is looking at your feet, telling you, thank you for your service. There's no heart to it. No. And then they would start practicing. And when they would start to put some inflection and positive affect in their praise voice, the dog would respond to them. And when the dog would respond to them, they felt success in doing something tangible, even though they were hospitalized, to take care of their own. And within a couple days, it was really interesting to watch the psychiatrist, the lead psychiatrist there, who was kind of not sure about this at the beginning. And he heard his most challenging that's who they gave me, the folks that weren't, responding. They weren't responding to treatment. Say, hey, let's try this. What do you got to lose? And then all of a sudden, the psychiatrist walking by, hearing this Richard Simmons happy, joyful tone from these guys that are just, down and out. And I within about 4 weeks, we had the House Veterans Affairs Committee staff.
Wow.
Come on. Because this was
within 4 weeks.
Yeah, they came in not to see the dogs. They didn't even know the dogs were there until they arrived. But this VA program was one of the original PTSD inpatient programs. The National Center for PTSD was affiliated with it. So it was very fortunate to be able to pilot this in this VA, specific VA. And when they came there and they saw the dogs, well, we'd like to talk to the participants. This is interesting. So they gathered them up in a circle and asked, is this impacting your recovery? And I remember this verbatim, that drill instructor, his response there was, ma'am, before I started working in this program with this dog, my wife had filed papers to divorce me because of the way I was treating our 3-year-old son. I was being too harsh. He was the drill instructor at Camp Pendleton in 2008. And he was bringing that home and treating his 3-year-old like a stubborn little boot. And he said, but on my remaining weekend visits I started bringing home the patience that I've been learning and this praise voice. He said, I think this is saving my marriage. It's teaching me how to reconnect with my son on a 3-year-old level. And at that point, the staff on the Hill asked if we would help draft language to introduce legislation to see more of this in the VA system. And again, 4 weeks in, it was like just mind blowing.
And how big was your team at that point? And then, so you're training. You got these very grand kids.
That had the pups. Of course, I was working for an organization up in Santa Rosa, which is like 3 hours away, and so that's where the dogs would stay there on the weekends, and then I would bring the dogs down to Menlo Park and stay there during the week. I actually lived in a doggy daycare center for the first year because I couldn't find a place on my limited budget to rent that would allow me to have 4 dogs.
Sure.
So it just, making it work.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. So then you embrace your mission. You're giving mission to these amazing warriors who are dealing with their own PTSD. You catch the attention of House Armed Services. How does that trajectory then lead to where we are today?
So over that several years, the pilot time, I was since invited to bring this program to Walter Reed. And in 2009, this new center at the Walter Reed now, formerly Naval Hospital in Bethesda, the National Intrepid Center of Excellence was being envisioned. And I was invited to speak with the leadership planning committee there, and they invited me to bring this program to the Intrepid Center, the NICO. And so I moved back east in 2010 to bring this program to the National Intrepid Center of Excellence. And it's the DoD side of things. It's the high ground of military medical research, and similar results that led to funded research through, congressionally funded research through the Uniformed Services University, and studying the efficacy of our program model. And it's been really, really fascinating to see the science catch up with what we do. This was called, magic back in 1995, animal-assisted therapy. It's just, wow, it's a miracle. You can't, you need the evidence. You need the data. Yeah. And through military medical research and, randomized controlled waitlist studies, we're getting that data that's so needed to propel this, to make it more readily available for more service members.
Wow. And talk a little bit about the statistics here, right? Isn't it one puppy can assist nearly 60 veterans, right? Like what are the kind of stats? How many people have been through the program, impacted in a positive way? How many puppies have graduated,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
what about some of the metrics?
So you're absolutely the the unique thing about how Warrior Canine Connection goes about our mission, it's not we breed and we train service dogs, but it's not one dog eventually helping one veteran, which, it's a wonderful thing. But in our program, that 2 years or so that it takes to train that puppy and have them hopefully become a service dog, like you said, we could have dozens of service members and veterans participating in the training of that dog over those 2 years and gain very important healing as a result of what they're learning, what they need to learn to train this dog. It's not just the purpose, but these dogs have to be taught to accept the public as a great place. They have to see the world they have to be taught that the world is a safe place. So when we have service members who are reluctant to go out in the public because of their anxiety and the experience of humans trying to kill Coop. Come here, buddy. Hi. I think Mr. Social.
I mean,
they are.
Coop loves coffee.
Yeah. He loves the people that drink the coffee. Hey, Coop. Here. You say hi. Lap. That's it. That's it. That's it. Oh, yeah. That's my good boy.
Only on Coffee with Ken, folks. Only on Coffee.
Cooper was actually trained out in Palo Alto.
Oh, wow.
Our veterans out there, and then he became a breeder for us. He has some puppies that have done very well.
So as you think of these warriors and these soldiers, these veterans, how is your program helping them reintegrate with their own families into the community? What's that impact and result that you've seen?
As far as families go, I think what's unique about our model is that service members and veterans who have been trained very well to be warfighters, and that training included being reactive and learning how to keep emotions from impacting your performance in a combat zone. But they're coming home trained as those warfighters and expected to jump back into the same role of loving patient parent without some retraining. And those are hard. How do you train someone to be patient and instead of being emotionally numb to put positive affect into their performance? And that's what I think is unique about our model, is that they have to learn to be patient. Our dogs are purpose-bred to be more laid back. I always, I've had service members saying, sit, 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 sit. I'm like, whoa, slow down. I said, these dogs aren't from Newark, New Jersey. Not that there's anything wrong with New Jersey, but
I don't know.
Well, if you have a search and rescue dog looking for you, you want the dog to be from Newark. Yeah. But for these dogs, it might be partnered with a veteran who has a severe mobility impairment. They need to be the Southern Mississippi porch dogs. Yeah. But those Southern Mississippi porch dogs, when you give them a command, sometimes you have to stop and let them ponder it for a few seconds before, you say anything again. Don't say it twice, which requires that they practice slowing down and being patient and waiting a bit, which really, the service members come home, they've been trained that when you give or get an order, it has to happen right away or someone could be injured or worse, but their families didn't go through that training. Yeah. So it creates a imbalance. And rather than expecting the family to be on edge and jump, we can train the service members to just slow down a little bit. This is different. Yeah. This mission back home in the family is different than where you just came from. And then rather than keeping emotions, emotional numbing is a huge part of PTSD symptomology. And sometimes you have to practice, you have to fake it till you make it. Yeah. But you need a really good reason to get a Marine drill instructor to pretend to sound happy. Sure. And in our case, you need to do that to take care of your battle buddies. Yeah.
And tell us about the pups, like all golden retrievers. What kind of dogs come through your program?
Mostly Labrador. We have mostly Labrador retrievers. If it was up to me, they'd all be golden retrievers. But the Labs are great and the Goldens are great. And we participate in collaborating with service and guide dog organizations around the world through this International Breeding Collaborative to really create the genetics of the dogs that are best suited for this work.
Yeah. And then how do you name them?
That's a great question. So about back in 2012, one of my trainers was a Navy corpsman. And he was going to foster one of her pups, and he wanted to name the pup. And he wanted to name the pup after a buddy of his, a battle buddy of another corpsman who was killed in Afghanistan. Of course, that's a great idea, but we would need to get permission from the family. I wouldn't do that without. And he talked to Corpsman Brian Lundy, his mom, and she was thrilled that people remembered, and we're going to keep remembering. So since then, all of our pups have been named after service members, those who made the ultimate sacrifice, and those who are still with us, always with permission.
Sure.
And that's been really a big part of the healing. Yeah. You know, to let especially these Gold Star families know that we're not forgetting, and every person that's going to be meeting this dog for the next 10, 12, how many years is going to be hearing that story. And the veterans that receive our dogs, that has a lot of meaning to them as well.
Yeah. You mentioned how some of your work early on led to legislation at the federal level. How long did it take to actually pass this legislation? And what else do you potentially need from government, federal, state, local, to further enhance the work and impact you're providing?
Yeah. Well, again, miraculously, it only took 13 years.
No, it was a breeze.
To get that initial introduction. It was the Veterans Dog Training Therapy Act passed 403 to 4, the entire House in 2009. But it didn't get finally signed by the president in 2021.
Oh, wow. And
it mandated the VA to create a minimum of 5 sites around the country where this model would be implemented. Unfortunately, the VA saw it as an unfunded mandate and said, well, you can do that if you'd like, and you can underwrite so, hoping that the Congress will see the value of this. This has been happening, since 2008. There's never been a bad outcome with this program in the hospital settings, and all of the results and the outcomes have been very, very positive. We hear spouses saying, "I have my husband back again." It really is time that since we have this program that's shown these benefits. And though the only side effects are maybe some fur and a little saliva, but to have something
that's interesting
is it's an experientially based education program that pulls in the animal assisted therapy component and includes a mission for these veterans who sometimes avoid treatment. It's been coined by a very famous Dr. Walter Reed, a psychiatrist. He said, "Rick, you created the Trojan dog program." He said, "These guys, they don't see it coming."
Yeah, interesting.
And it's true. We focus on, hey, we need your help.
Yeah.
We treat veterans and service members in hospital settings as not consumers of mental health or healthcare, but as contributors. Hey, while you're here, we'll put you to work if you like dogs. And most of those service members like dogs when they're like people because of their experiences. And then
you're tapping into their service nature and mission orientation.
Yeah, that core value, it's called the Warrior ethos. You do what, you never leave a comrade behind. You do everything you can to care for your own, and including training dogs for fellow vets, because the wait list for veterans to receive these dogs is wait's small. The demand is way ahead of the supply. And I'm hoping
nationally or just locally?
Yeah, nationally. And my hope is that with the help of Congress and the VA and others and the public, that we can eliminate that wait list. And
so they've authorized 5 locations nationally for VA, but just never funded them, so it's never really gotten off the ground.
It's happening at 5 sites on a minimal scale.
On a minimal scale.
Several hundred veterans will benefit. I'd like to see
the demand is probably higher from the
tens
number
of thousands need to benefit.
Yeah. Interesting. So we love these conversations where we kind of focus on, kind of government, private sector, and impact partners, and you're clearly an impact partner. When you look out to the community and folks who are watching maybe thinking that they want to be supportive of you and the organization, what can they do? What's the call to action? What can regular folks do? What could companies do? what do you need?
Yeah, thank you. At the heart of our mission, and it is a collaborative effort. It takes a village to do this.
Yeah.
Trust me, on so many different fronts. But having volunteers that are willing to take in puppies as puppy raisers and go through training, and then willingly give the puppy up about a year and a half,
Sure,
is a gift of the heart.
wow,
Then get another puppy, hopefully, to keep your oxytocin levels down. That is a core need for us and any other service dog organization really around the world. That's a universal need. Of course, the funding to be able to do this and to run this operation, those who don't have the time to volunteer in that capacity but have been blessed and have the resources to help support us financially, we certainly need that to keep the lights on, to keep the dogs fed.
Yeah.
The businesses supporting us, absolutely, critical to our needs. Foundations, and then the government. We have, it's an interesting collaboration here because we're sitting here on Maryland State Parkland. So we have this wonderful relationship with Maryland and the Department of Natural Resources, Department of Veterans Affairs.
That's great.
There's also the county that supports our efforts.
Right.
And then the federal government. We work with, the Walter Reed and the VA sites. So I always thought that this isn't the easiest way to go about things, because the more complex the collaboration is, it can be more challenging. But I always thought, if you can't make a collaboration like this, of this complexity, work in the DC area serving veterans, it probably can't be done.
Sure.
But I also thought, if you can make this work and show a successful model, it could be replicated. And
Interesting. And then one other big highlight, obviously, I think last season, the team dog for the Washington Commanders came from Warrior Canine Connection, right? So
yes.
So you guys cover all the bases.
And what an honor to go down and meet Colonel Barnum, Barney's namesake. To meet a Medal of Honor recipient is like winning the lottery. Just what a blessing to be able to honor his service, meet him, and thank him personally.
Well, listen, when we first heard of this idea, it was one that I had to pause and kind of think a little bit about, but I'm so grateful to you and the organization for taking time to talk with us today. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we're going to hop out and go meet some puppies out on the grounds today.
Yes, we do have some puppies to socialize, and I didn't mention that we'd put you to work.
Let's do it.
But someone has.
I'm ready. This is also a very special day for me because I brought my 3-year-old daughter, Lucy. Those eyes like your puppy staring at you when you're leaving, when I told her I was going to see a bunch of puppies, she wanted to join. So we're going to bring her out to socialize too.
And Lucy is going to be doing her community service too, because one of the things is critical to introduce these puppies to youngsters at an early age, so that they grow up accepting kids and, all the above. So we'll put Lucy to work as well.
Well, what a treat, Rick.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. CoffeeWithKen.com.